another part of our In the Spotlight series. Today, together with me, I've got Dr. Karin Sixl. Karin is a professor at MCI and mainly teaches online. Now, welcome, Karin.
Thanks for having me.
Karin, you do have a lot of online teaching experience. Could you tell us a little more about this?
I'm more than happy to tell you more about it. I've been teaching online since 2003. Back in the days when online teaching meant only the written word, no webinars as we have these days because of bandwidth issues. So I've seen it evolve over the years, and it's been a great journey.
Now, Karin, when you say you teach online, what do we have to picture in terms of online teaching? What is it you do when you act as a teacher or lecturer online?
I prefer the term facilitator over teacher or lecturer or professor, because in the online setting we see students obviously having to do a lot of the reading of content by themselves, working on content by themselves, and it's about the facilitation of the entire module, the entire subject. And that would include particularly not only the webinars, which do have some sort of instructional paths in there, but much more the facilitation of acquiring content, and that will be through discussions, for example, through reflective assignments and much more. However, in the online setting, people don't see me logically quite as much as they would do in the face-to-face environment. So communication needs to be different. I need to factor this all in the design of the entire subject, for example. And so it's an effort for everybody involved, but it's a very interesting challenge for everyone.
Now, does that mean that your role as a lecturer has also changed since you have taught online?
Since starting teaching online, yes, it has, because as I mentioned, we didn't have webinars before. Now we have webinars, so we have more of the traditional instruction also in the face-to-face setting possible, where in the past people just did not benefit from this part of the facilitator. However, for me it is very, very important that people try to reflect on things that they've been taught, that people try to apply things, their newly acquired knowledge in their personal environments. So this has been evolving over time, but always still very, very interesting both ways.
So how do you actually plan your online teaching sessions?
You have to keep in mind also the background of the students. So what I always do is I try to gather as much information as possible about the backgrounds of the students involved. You have to keep in mind whether it's bachelor's, master's, or, for example, MBA level, to tailor the content to the needs of the students. Their personal backgrounds, their work backgrounds, so that I can make sure that we find examples that work really well for them in their personal settings, and discussion questions, for example, that make particularly more sense in a particular setting than it would make for a different group, for example.
This very much sounds like, coaching and training in a way.
There's a lot of coaching involved. I do a lot of coaching as well. There's lots of requests for coaching. People very often think that in online environments you cannot be close to your students. You can be very close to your students, and in fact I would say you can be even closer to your students in online environments if you put the effort into things.
Because you also follow their, improvements step by step, don't you?
I follow their improvements. It's great to observe how things are being applied, how they develop themselves personally, and to get messages afterwards, after having completed a bachelor's and or master's program, to see how people are able to apply this all in their workplaces still, and now realize that even more so than before, they're able to apply things. It's just great.
Karin, if a young lecturer just starting in higher education asked you what he or she should do to prepare for the new teaching environment, what would your one piece of advice be?
Put your heart and soul into it, and make sure that you understand the needs of the audience, whether it's online or face-to-face, but even more so in the online setting, so that you can tweak the additional content and your role as a facilitator to the group's needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I would do.
Mm-hmm. What do you personally love about teaching, Karin?
Everything. I just love everything about it. I love how I can see people progress over time, how I see what you tell people, the piece of advice or knowledge that you try to instill into people, how this actually makes sense to them, how it changes their lives, how it changes their work environments, and how they are able to progress on and in their careers through it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the love for people is an important precondition for teaching?
I think it's certainly very helpful to have a love for people, and even more so in the online environment, because people just don't see you every week for a couple of hours like they would do in a regular setting, or if it's a weekend session on the weekends, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it definitely helps.
Thank you, Karin, for some really interesting input.
Thanks for having me.